Club Dump. If you'll notice, we were playing with Joyride, a great Orange County band, and El Magnifico, sadly departed, and Monkey Paw, who I don't know if anybody's ever heard of anymore. The Paw! Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Back then, we gave away these shows. You just walked into Club Lingerie. That was probably March 15th, 1993, in my opinion. Club Lingerie is still there, but nobody really rocks there anymore, as far as I know. Can I have the next slide, please? Ooh, that dog. English Acid on Santa Monica Boulevard. We had a lot of fun there, but I think it's long gone. It's kind of a naughty place now where nobody should go. I don't know. A very naughty place. And Moth Macabre was a cool band. What happened to them? Well, let's have the next slide. Oh, we can't even read that one. That's an old set list from '93, and it pretty much resembles what you're about to see. Pretty close, anyway. Let's have the next slide.
You're not gonna do long by.
Ooh, another one with Joyride. And you know, Nine Iron had Tony from That Dog as a singer, and it was great. It was a great band. What happened to Tony? Where are those guys? Another one at the wonderful Club Dump. That was actually, today, the Viper Room. Let's move on to the next slide. Ooh, Black Market Flowers, a very cool band. Black Market Flowers was the other band that had a song called Michael and Carly, and they did it first. Michael and Carly were working kind of for them as the fan club girls. Then they discovered Weezer in July 1992, and we were both with Michael and Carly at that point. Anyway, another Club Lingerie flyer I designed. Let's move on to the next slide. All right, Michael and Carly, when we were going to go to the New York City to record the Blue album, they found stills from the Kiss movie, The Elder, and they found the talismans that the Kiss were given, and they said, we're going to make Weezer the same talismans. Open the box, please. Next slide. There it is. Look at those. Isn't that cool? That's how cool they were. We remember them every day. And so that was our good luck charm for the Blue album, and I would say it definitely worked. Thank you, girls. Let's move on to the next slide. There's Rick Ocasek in Electric Lady for recording the Blue album that day. He's so cool. He's so cool. Rick was the coolest guy ever. So awesome, dude. Let's, next slide, let's 9. There is Brian Bell about 10 minutes after he joined the band. Look how happy he is. Wait. He's in our hotel room going, I can't believe I'm actually here. They did it. They hired me. Yes! Let's move on to the next slide. That is Brian Bell's audition tape that he sent us through the mail to New York City to prove he could sing, and he could. Hi Weezer, please enjoy this fine recording. Compliments of Radio Shack and Brian Bell. 9/14/93. Let's move on to the next slide. They're the guys in Electric Lady working on the Blue album. I wish I knew what song, but I don't. Next slide. There they are. There's Rivers at the organ. I think that was considered for in the garage.
Yeah!
And I remember that tech. I forgot his name though. Anyway, moving on to the next slide. There's Rivers recording acoustic guitar. That could be for perhaps The World Has Turned. Next slide, please. There's me. Yes, Times certainly have changed. Next slide, please. This was right after the Blue album, Brian and Rivers. You remember this possibly from the cover of Alone, Rivers' first demo CD. That was at, where the hell were we? Somewhere down on Venice Boulevard. Next slide, please. Needless to say, the concept for the cover went through some permutations. This is a test shot we took in the rehearsal studio. Moving on, next slide. That one did not make it. Next slide. That one really did not make it. Next slide. There is the original drum head that I still have. As you can tell, it's in terrible shape, but we recreated it for this tour. Bacchus. Bacchus, we must all worship Bacchus. Next slide, please. That's a friend of the band, Patrick Finn, wearing the very first Weezer t-shirt that we made exactly 25 copies of. So it's a little rare today. Moving on to the next slide. These are ideas looking for the right font and the look of the album cover. Drew that in the studio while the guys were working. Next slide. This was Rivers' sketch of what he wanted the Blue album to look like. Next slide. That's my interpretation of the same idea with some suggestions that never happened. Next slide. All right, the Black Van, AKA the Enforcer, later known as Betsy. We paid $5 grand for that piece of crap, but we loved it. From a guy in Fontana who looked exactly like Muammar Gaddafi. Very strange. Moving on to the next slide. There it is in all its glory. When we painted the roof white because it was so hot up there to reflect the sun, people called it like the Hostess cupcake, whatever. But it was a lot of fun until it broke a lot. It broke many, many times. Terrible. Next slide, please. Rivers moving t-shirts and equipment back in the day. He doesn't do that now because he's too busy running around in the audience during the show. Next slide, please. There we are in the van. You'll note the sticker, "I love my wife." Pat Wilson put that on the van. He was the only married man at the time. Next slide. There's Pat, front seat. We're all about to go on, I think we're out in the Lush tour, opening for Lush. Awesome tour. Next slide, please. There's an early flyer. Opening for Overwhelming Color Fast. Great band, by the way. Great band. Next slide, please. Another Overwhelming Color Fast, but the headliner, Blood of Abraham. Woo! Next slide, please. An early, there you go. Still free, but now we had the real posters to prove that, well, who knows? Nobody bought the album yet anyway. Next slide, please. That's a cool poster from, where the hell were we? Holland, on our first overseas tour. It's a silk screen, and I cherish it to this day. It's so cool. Next slide, please. That's what it looked like. Not too different than tonight, except there was no seats at all. I think that was at Blind Melons in Buffalo, New York. Yeah. Next slide, please. First day with a tour bus ever. Here we are trying to figure out like how to get all the gear underneath because there was no room for anything. Next slide, please. This is on the tour with Live, opening for Live. You can see in the top left, Ed Kowalczyk is apparently kissing Matt's head, but that's just a trick of the camera. That didn't really happen like that. Next slide, please. Then the camera broke, so we started interpreting it artistically. And moving on, next slide, please. That's a drawing I did of Rivers on the road somewhere in the summer of '95. And I think the next slide is our final slide. That's me back in the day at work. All right, folks. Those are my memories. Coming up in a few minutes will be everybody's memories. Thank you very much.